she just came back from a little vacation, and she has just presented this same presentation in person. And so now she'll be presenting it to us. I'm excited. I saw this presentation in person when I was at the Association for Rural and Small Libraries conference last year. And I thought that it would work really well with what we're doing, which is a sort of a kickoff for marketing your library. And taking the right kind of photos is definitely an important part of that. So go ahead, Dorothy. Thank you and welcome.
All right, so do you hear the lovely alarm behind me? I hope
Yes.
it's not too disruptive, and I hope it will stop. They're probably checking the fire system. I don't know.
Of course they are.
Of course they are. So let me tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. I have about 25 years of library experience now, mostly in small-ish libraries, maybe not as small as yours. Like I was telling when we're talking about it a little bit, I worked for Air Force Libraries for about 15 years, and I have been in the administrative office here at the Okaloosa County Public Library Cooperative, what a mouthful, in Niceville, Florida for about 10 years now. Just had my 10th anniversary. I love photography, always have ever since I was a little kid, and I tagged along with my dad, and I got to hold the camera when he was changing lenses. So it's always kind of been my thing. Now, that being said, I was not always good at it. So there was a lot of trial and error, and we're going to talk through this. And like Gail said, she saw me at the Small and Rural Library Conference. Did I get that right, Gail?
Close enough.
Close enough. We'll go with it. In Kansas, and that was also the jumping off point for my presentation last week in St. Johns County in Florida. So, and look at photography, not so much as photography, but as telling your library story with pictures. You know, good things happen at our libraries, but a lot of people don't know that, especially those people who don't come to our libraries. So with the pictures that we take, we can tell them what kind of activities are going on at the libraries that perhaps they don't expect. So photos with happy and engaged customers using your libraries in different unexpected ways can lure them in. And I don't know about you, but a photo catches my eye a lot better than any set of statistics can. I mean, if you tell me that you checked out 2,000 books last month, I don't know if that's good or bad because I don't have a feel for who your library is. But show me a picture of a smiling, happy customer, and I'm intrigued. I want to know more. So one of the reason we take the photos is to connect with people and, you know, to see it from the perspective of those that we see in the pictures. The best stories that we take tell a story or tell us what's going on and evoke an emotion. Wow, this alarm is fun. So as you can tell, I am not a professional photographer, so I will not give you the details of what exactly your lighting needs to be and what you want to do the best picture. We're going to talk more about how to create, edit, and organize the images that we take so we have them when we need them. You know, so when you have that social media post that you have to make, you know where you can get those pictures that you need for that. When you take the pictures, you want to think about how you're going to use them before you take them. Are you documenting an event? Are you taking snapshots? Or do you need your photos for a specific purpose? And those are all different types of pictures you will be taking. We're going to talk a little bit how to get the pictures that you need for what you're taking them for. And I have learned that taking better photos will save me a lot of time on the editing and will make the process just that much faster. This is one of my weak spots. I'm oftentimes the person who takes the pictures, but I'm not necessarily the person who needs to use them. So part of taking good pictures is to organize them in a meaningful way so you can access them whenever you need them, or other people in your organizations. For example, my boss needs pictures sometimes for an annual report. And if I'm the only one who can access those pictures, then we are wasting valuable time. Can you guys hear me through all of that?
This is Gail. Yes, we can hear you. I just hear like it's not much in the background.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know how bad it was because it's super loud on my part. So what I'm not going to cover in this presentation is privacy policies or local policies, because your policies will be different than ours, and everybody has a little bit different take on it. And I am a Gryffindor, so I take my pictures first and ask permission later. And that may not work for you in your setting. So, be familiar with your policy and know what you're supposed to do or not supposed to do as far as showing faces or getting permission, or do you need something in writing? So everybody is just a little bit different in what they do there. We're not going to get into equipment. I have a DSLR camera, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And I have a cell phone, and I use both. And we're going to talk a little bit about what works better for each setting as far as what type of equipment, but we're not going to go into which brand is better than the other, because there's just too much out there. And let's face it, there may be a better camera out there, but if you don't have it in your library or in your office, it won't do you a bit of good. One of the quotes that I liked was from photographer Peter Adams. He says, photography is not about cameras, gadgets, or gizmos. Photography is about photographers. A camera did not make a great picture any more than a typewriter wrote a great novel. And I think that is so true. What we are going to look at a little bit is to include photography in our event planning and not treat it like an afterthought. So before an event, you may want to know that, who takes the pictures, what equipment are we going to use, what pictures do we need, and we're going to allow time to edit and post the pictures. And I think that is one of the things that we oftentimes forget, is that when the event is over, the photographer is not done. Oftentimes when I take photos at a bigger event, I'll have hundreds of photos, and not all of them will be photos that we will use. So then it also takes some time to edit them and pick just the best ones. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay, good. So let's talk about cameras versus cell phones. They certainly have some pros. The big cameras have some pros. They look more professional. People will take them more serious. Depending on what your requirements are at work, it may be easier to transfer files from a regular camera than from a cell phone. And I have found that the battery life on my camera is a lot more reliable than the one on my cell phone. So who knows what DSLR stands for? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. It stands for digital single lens reflex camera. I would never remember that. So we talked a little bit about that. It is a more professional piece of equipment, has more settings, better quality in all, better battery life, and easier to transfer files. The downside of it is because it's expensive, you don't really want to set it down. It's heavy and clunky to carry. So if you are the only person in the room and you are using a camera, then it may slow you down some and you will not have your hands free. If you need to hand it off, oftentimes people are intimidated by the bigger cameras and are afraid to use it. I wonder if I should evacuate. I don't know, but we won't. So the cell phones, again, they have pros and cons. Often, if you have your own cell phone and you use it a lot, obviously you know how to operate it, you know more about the settings. If you have a way to carry it, you can be hands-free between shots, whether you put it in your pocket or you carry it on a lanyard. You can edit on the device and post instantly, which obviously does not work with a camera. The older cell phones may be less reliable, and the battery life could be unreliable. I have had some problems with the file transfers. I don't know about you guys, but we are not allowed to plug anything into our work computers. So in order to transfer the pictures from a cell phone to your computer, I have to either email them to myself, which are of course big files, or I have to download them to my personal computer, then edit them, and then I can send them to myself. I have an iPhone. I don't know what you guys use. And the iPhone, of course, has their own format. It's called HEIC. And here's my tip for you iPhone users out there. If you go into your settings under camera and format, you can change that to be a JPEG. And that makes it a little bit easier to transfer your files. So if you use your iPhone for photography on events, then that is a tip. I have changed it and it has changed my life, especially when I have multiple photos. So let's talk about the event itself. So before you get to the event, you want to do a little bit of planning ahead. If you are using a camera that you don't always use, you should take some time with the camera, play with it, try the different settings and play with it, or go to your location and try it and see what the light is like. Change batteries or charge batteries. Nowadays, most of them are rechargeable. So you want to make sure that your batteries are good and you have maybe a backup set of batteries. Make sure that your storage is good on that. I don't run into that as a problem as much anymore as we used to, because now the storage capacities are much bigger than they used to be 5-10 years ago. So I think that has gotten to be a lot better. And the important thing is practice, practice, practice with any kind of equipment that you're not so familiar with. So if you just got a new library camera, try it, play with it, use that whenever you can. Another thing as a photographer, and we'll talk a little bit about why this matters in a minute, but think about what you're wearing. I find that I want to blend with the rest of the people. So oftentimes, you can't go wrong with black pants and a black top because it makes you somewhat invisible. And if you are standing up in front of other people or you're in the front of the room, your presence won't be as distracting. And another thing that I have learned is to wear a name tag, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Another thing about what you're choosing to wear, I find pockets are the most important thing in my wardrobe. So I can put my phone in there, so I can put my keys in there, so I have both hands free to do and to take photos and to just be available. Comfortable shoes, and whatever you wear, make sure it is something that you're comfortable climbing on a chair if you're allowed to do so. Some libraries are really strict about that and say do not climb on chairs, or to lay down on the floor or crawl down on the floor with the kids, the animals, whatever you're taking photos of. So just make sure you're wearing something comfortable to where you can move and be in action the entire time without having to think about what you're wearing. an important thing is to visit your location ahead of time. Some of the program rooms that we know in our libraries, the light is difficult to deal with, so you might want to try it with whatever equipment you have. Take some practice shots, take some, if you have a friend that can come with you, take a few pictures of them. Think about where things are happening. You can, ahead of the event, sometimes it can help to declutter the area and make sure you get a good shot there. Look for potential distractions and perhaps even places to pose. Busy backgrounds are super difficult to take pictures in front of. They will show up on your pictures and you don't have that clean shot that you want. Look at the picture right here. I mean, of course, we have a super clean background, but think about that in front of a regular library wall with maybe some art on it and some photos behind. It makes it more difficult to focus on the things that you're really wanting to look at. And I think if you take nothing else away from today's session is when you take photos, really look at your viewfinder, see what you're looking at, see what distractions show up in your viewfinder, and really take a close look. You want to get as close as you can, and shifting your angle and moving around in the front of the room or in your room and around your subject can get you the better shot. And I'm going to show you some examples of that in just a little bit. I have learned as a photographer, if I have anything to do with the planning of the event, is to save the best seat in the house for the photographer, front and center. Because if you can sit down, you can get a lot of shots from there. You don't want to be static, but you will have a good starting point to be close to the performers to get just that, the picture that you might want. And don't be afraid to move around and maybe stand behind the performers and get that shot from behind the performer into the audience. But just be quick. And that's, again, why we're wearing things that are not distracting. So if you are moving around in a picture and somebody else takes pictures, then it's not as distracting if you do it that way. So name tags have become important. I find that when I introduce myself to the performers and say, hey, I'm Dorothy, I'm going to be taking pictures today, they usually give me the best photo opportunities ever. I mean, you see like this guy, he holds up his snake basically right in front of my camera, so I can get that good shot and you get the smile of the performer and, you get a much better picture than when you are standing in the
takes off and meanders around
in the back of the room. And oftentimes when the presenters know that you are the one taking the official photos, they will give you that shot. I usually exchange business cards with them ahead of time and tell them if I have good shots, then I will send it to them. And they like that a lot. The other thing about name tags that has worked out really well for us is that when you take pictures of children, and you are identifying yourself as a library photographer or staff photographer or whatever you want to call it, the parents don't get creeped out. And they understand that you are taking pictures for the library and will probably look at your social media later in the day or the next day to see if they find pictures of themselves or of their kids in there. So that is definitely an advantage of identifying yourself as the photographer. All right, so this is where we get to the fun part. You heard me talk about distractions in photos. So what do you see in this photo that could be super distracting? I require audience participation on this one. Let's
So
go.
you can unmute yourself or type it into the chat, but what do you see in this photo that's distracting? I know what I see.
Yes, yes, Andy, you got it. The biggest thing is, of course, let me get my laser pointer here, maybe. There it is. There's a box of Jim Beam. I would agree on the base. I would also point at that open door with that book card there. Yes, the back of the chair, I see that. So those are all things that could have been avoidable if there had been a little bit of planning ahead of time, somebody closing the door, somebody maybe even just turning the box to where the Jim Beam label is not visible. And yeah, the vase could be gone. You know, I visited a couple of libraries last week after my presentation, and one of them was having a Friends of the Library book sale, and every one of these books was boxed in a booze box. I just had too much fun. I wish I could share a picture of that, but it was just booze box next to booze box. It was awesome. So my other pet peeve is taking pictures from the back of the room. And so I try to take this picture to be as horrible as humanly possible. And if you look at it, you see a lot of distracting things. Do I get audience participation on this one too? What is distracting in this picture? Anybody? The ceiling art, yes, the things dangling from the ceiling. Agreed. So much floor, also that, and walls, and you see all of these hard lines that can be very distracting. You have art behind the performers. You have a stand-up poster there. Yep, posters on the wall. So I took the picture and I don't even know what I'm looking at. So if this is a picture you posted on social media, okay, you see there's kids and there's lots of color, but you don't really see what's going on. So in that same room, and that room is a very difficult room to take pictures. You have all of the hard lines of the windows, the frames, you have art right back here, then you have art on every wall. So the only thing I could see myself doing is to ask the performers to pose with their animals right there. So back behind this curtain is a kitchenette. So fortunately, we were able to close the curtain and I asked the performers to just pose for me. And now we obviously see why they're there and what they are doing. And that is the difference between this picture and that. This one I could use on social media, but yes, it is a little bit hard there. I agree with you, Patty. But that was the best thing I could do in that situation. And, you know, we may not get perfect pictures, but we can certainly get better pictures. Again, we're talking about distractions. When I look at this photo, I don't even truly know what I'm looking at because there is so much going on. Oops. There's my laser pointer. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff there. There's some hand sanitizer, some stand-up posters, those lights up on top. You know, I know what I was trying to take the picture of, but it does not translate well on the screen. So the best I could do with this, and still not ideal, but at least here we know, you know, what we're looking at. We got our bird. We still have that backdrop that is not ideal, but it is a better picture. And this is at least a usable picture. So now let's see look at this one. And this one I took years and years ago. I, again, know what I was trying to do, but it didn't work. So tell me why it didn't work. What do we have? Audience participation. Help me out here, guys. It is dark. Yes, agreed. Backlighting. And the only thing I do see here, oh, my pointer just keeps freezing up here. Hang on. Let me try it again. There we go. How about that igloo cooler there? That is, yes, exactly, lighting in the igloo cooler. That is much more prominent than this bird with this awesome blueberry in his mouth, in his beak. So I think it's okay to try to take these pictures, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And if they don't, just don't use them. And I think this is something that has probably happened to everyone. You will just keep hearing me talk about the bad angles and the pictures from the back of the room. And this is one of the reasons we don't take them. Men usually don't like seeing themselves like that. And of course, we also have bad angles for women, and there is that. Young mothers working with their kids on crafts sometimes take unfortunate photos. Again, I think it's okay that you take those pictures, just don't use them. So let's talk about this for a moment. I was talking earlier about shifting your angle and moving around in the room and trying to see what will work for you and what doesn't. So I really liked seeing this person in the library, and I thought I could use pictures of her. Which one of those pictures do you like the best? One in the center, okay. Anybody have a different opinion? I'll wait for just a second. See what you guys think. Center, okay. So I could see either the center as my favorite or the one on the top left. What I like about the first picture, let's see. What I like about this one is her smile. She looks right at the camera. She is obviously enjoying herself, having a good time, getting done whatever she needs to get done. And I do like that. What I don't like about that picture are those leading lines. See how the bookshelves draw the eye towards the back of the picture? And they end up over here, which is the circulation desk. This one here, I wish she had looked up just long enough for me to take the picture on that one, because that way you would have that connection that you otherwise don't have. What I like seeing in here is that the lines here are not as harsh as they are in the other photo. They don't lead anywhere, so you don't get distracted by those. And so that works out really well. We don't have a lot of clutter, and the books in the background kind of gives us a sense of place. You definitely know this is at a library, but you also see that it's not only books that we have at the library. So we do see someone working on their laptop in the library, which implies that there is Wi-Fi perhaps, and makes you think about the possibilities of what is there. And this one here just has too much clutter. If that was the only photo I had, I would probably still use it. I might crop it a little bit, like right here maybe. But I would use it without the stuff that's on the desk, and that would make it a little bit easier to see what we want to see there. And of course, again, a little distracting back behind there is a window and those hard lines there. So I would agree with you guys that the one in the center is probably the most useful one.
You've got a good comment, Dorothy. It says, thank you for pointing these things out. I can't always figure out why I don't like my photos. These things are so obvious, but it's good to see examples.
Well, yay. And we're going to work on some more examples next. So I'm glad that you like that, Patty. I appreciate that feedback. So let's take a look at our next example. Again, we're talking about moving around. You can, oops, sorry. You can understand the time frame when this was taken. Obviously, during our COVID days, these two young boys were sitting there. I asked their parents' permission to take the photos because otherwise it would be creepy when I'm lurking around. And as you see, they moved themselves around. I did not ask them to pose. They just did their own thing. It was just one of those moments. Which one of those photos do you like the best? There's no right or wrong answers. Just let me know. Yes, so a couple of you say center, center, and right. So what do we not like about the picture on the left? Yeah, so those two boys were super cute, and it was just a great opportunity to take my time. You're right, the shelves in the back, even though they give you a sense of place and you understand you're in a library, it is distracting. And again, if you look at the lines in the photo, you know, there's a line off the top of that shelf going that way, and these are going that way, and it's kind of a restless feeling there. Yes, one of the boys is covered a little bit by the other one. I like this one because it looks very natural. Somebody at my other presentation said this looks very staged, like somebody said, okay, sit down and read. And I think that's true. So, but these are the kind of results that you get when you don't just take a picture and move on, but you move around a little bit, take a few pictures, and then just keep the very best one of them. How do you guys feel about staging photos? So in this instant, we had a performer, and you see the first photo here. She was doing things, we were dancing and things like that. But I felt that this little kid looked bored. This one looked out of sync. We're not quite sure what this one was thinking. So when kids are in action, the still photo looks a lot different than the action that you experience while you're taking the photo. So oftentimes I will ask a performer either before or after their performance to stage a photo, depending on what they are doing. You can stage them with the kids in the room, and I think that worked really well here. So we understand that the performer is doing something with music. She's playing the guitar, and we understand her target audience. And everybody is looking pretty happy in there because, of course, they are looking at the camera instead of doing the thing. Yes, you do see tape on the floor, and I believe that is stay behind that line and do your thing. I think that's exactly what happens in that sort of setting when they have performers in that big room. Yes, crowd control tape. I like it. So I would encourage you to just practice that. If you have a performer or if you have somebody teaching a skill at your library, and even if it's a volunteer showing people how to crochet, don't just take a group shot of the people who sit around them crocheting, but maybe do a close-up of their hands as they do what they do. So practice the staged photo a little bit, because I do think that that is a more useful photo to be used in social media, in brochures, in your annual plan, annual report, or any of those sort of things. Sometimes the staged photos will get you a lot further. We talked about editing a little bit. That is part of planning your photography. Even if you take your pictures on your phone where you can edit them on the phone, it still takes a little bit of time. And especially if you take a lot of photos during an event. It takes time when you have 5 that look basically the same to look at all 5 of them and see which one is the best one and delete the other 4. So it's not instant. So if any of you are library directors who ask a staff member to do the photography, just figure in the time that it takes after the event to edit and post those photos. This is something I learned over the years, and unfortunately, I didn't learn it immediately, or actually, fortunately for this presentation, because I had some really bad pictures left to show you what not to save. So fuzzy, bad lighting, super fuzzy, worse lighting. That's just awkward. I don't know. You know, I thought those 2 little girls were cute and all of that, but just their bodies and then, you know, the bodies behind them, there's nothing good to be done with that photo. So I should have just deleted it, but thank goodness I didn't. So I had bad pictures as examples, because we all learn better from examples. I don't even know what's going on there, to be honest. There's so many people. I got nothing. Should have deleted it. And yes, that's a definite delete. And this person here, I know personally, and she would probably hate me for using this. So sorry, Laura. So that is just one of the things when you do need the good pictures, you don't want to have to rifle through a few hundred bad pictures to get to the ones that you can actually use. So again, invest that time immediately after the photography session or the event to get rid of what you're never going to use anyways. Save a lot of storage space that way too. And sometimes we think, well, but there are background removal tools. I can do something with that picture, it could work. So I really kind of like this picture because you have the lady sewing on her machine. And I thought, okay, there's so much stuff going on in the background. What if I just remove the background, right? Wrong. It just looks hideous and awful. And this is all just floating in space. So when you take your photos, do not count on your editing tools to make it a better photo. Just try to take the better photo to begin with by shifting your angles, by looking at the lighting, by looking at the background, by decluttering. Don't just count on the editing tools that we all do have, and they are getting a lot better, but they're not perfect. And the other thing I found about that is that those editing tools also take some time. So again, you need to invest time in it. So on this one, the editing tool actually did work to remove the background, and we currently use that on our website as one of our photos. This was a nice clean removal, background removal. Oftentimes where the tool fails you is around the head when there's hair. Oftentimes it looks really awkward. I'm sure you've seen it. It also happens in Zoom meetings when you blur your background and your hair is moving. It is hideous. I hope mine doesn't do that right now. But, so just be very careful in using those editing tools so that the photos still look real. All right, so this one, I changed the angle and that was really cool. And I liked the picture, except you got a baby booty there. You got someone who looks slightly bored, someone who looks very blurry, and parents talking in the background. So this photo, the way it is to me, is not usable. But what you can do is crop it. So it's not perfect. I wish I could have cropped these two out too, but then the photo wouldn't have worked anymore. But think about cropping versus background removal or blurring things or things like that, because it does still look more natural than some of the other tools. So some thoughtful cropping can be an easy fix. Yes, Patty, you're right. Vertical could have worked for this one. But I intentionally kind of did this so you could see, what didn't work before. This is something that I'm also learning with time to get a diverse library of images and to be thoughtful of who you take pictures of. You may, especially let's say in the children's programs, you always have this really super cute 4-year-old with blonde braids who's always in the foreground, and she is just so cute that you want to take her pictures all the time. But that leaves out a lot of our other people. And let's face it, when we see photos, we kind of identify or try to identify with them. And if it is always the same type of people you see in your pictures, that's not going to work. And we all understand that most people know who uses a library. Kids and old people. And that's oftentimes what people think if they have not been at a library in a long time. They think story time and old ladies checking out romance novels, maybe somebody on a computer. So what we've seen is that other people also use our libraries. and to keep an eye open for them when they come in and to take their pictures as well. So you have a wide variety of people that you can showcase in your social media, in your brochures, in your advertising, so that different people can identify and see themselves at the library and see what the library has for them. And I'm super glad that my boss left the room, because this is my weak spot and she gets me on this every time. And that is organizing your pictures and getting rid of old pictures that no longer matter. So we have 6 library locations. So what I usually do is I sort by library. So I have a folder for each library, and then I may have folders for different years and then for different types of photos. Do whatever works for you, but don't just camera dump your stuff in a folder and hope that you will find the things when you need them. Because usually when you do need a photo, you need it now. You don't need it in 3 days. You need it for a post you want to make today, for a brochure you're working on, for an annual report. So you want to make sure that they are organized in a way that you understand, and perhaps that somebody else in your organization understands, because it's not always going to be you who needs the picture. It could be somebody else who needs to also be able to find them. New vendors sometimes send us their marketing materials, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. So we have found that we want to take our own pictures for some of the new services that we try to promote, because what the vendor sends us just doesn't work for us. So these pictures are more of a staged shot. Again, you want them to be not cluttered. You want to have people understand when they look at the picture what is happening, what they're looking at, you know, how they may benefit. So this was one of my favorites. This was back in the day. This picture is probably about 6 or 7 years old, and we were telling folks about Overdrive and Libby. So you see the headphones, you see the device, and you see a person using it. What they had sent us in that Go, I guess, didn't work for us. And this is my lovely boss. We got a new service that taught you how to do things online, and these were ukulele lessons. So we were trying to showcase how it worked. So you have your laptop from which you learn, you have your thing that you're learning, and you are happy to do it. Now, this picture probably took us about 20 times before we got something that we thought we could use. At first, we had to take some photos off the wall to get rid of the clutter. We had to figure out an angle that would be believable, that, you know, this person might actually look over there from time to time to learn how to do it, and to hold the ukulele in a way that we could understand. I love the way she smiles, and that's what sells the service right here. This was done with the background removal. It was actually not a staged photo. It was just a really good shot that happened at one of our graduation ceremonies. But again, the smile sell and the lack of a background gives us room to put the logo or some other text in the picture and use it the way it is. Social media, I think one of the more important things is timeliness, and not to do camera dumps. And just think about, if you are on social media, what are you looking at? What catches your eye, and what makes you maybe click on the post and read about it? Usually that is not a poster with a lot of text. We tend to want to do that and get all of the information in that picture, but I don't think that is what people actually stop at and read, unless it's a really, really super good one, or a dog with a hat. So I think we have all gotten better at this. I think about 5 or 10 years ago, camera dumps existed everywhere. And this was, of course, all one event. And I think this picture speaks to me more than any of the others. You know, this picture here, you might want to show your library director that you went to a youth center and there were this many kids in the room, and that justified paying for the storyteller. But that is not something you would use on social media or on a brochure or such. This one I actually sent to the storyteller, and she thanked me about 100,000 times, because that is a difficult thing to show, is someone telling a story, because there are no props, there are no things, and it's just kind of hard to understand what's going on a lot of times. And in here you see the target audience again. You see that they're all very interested, and you just see the expression and the gestures and, you know, from the storyteller. So let's see what all we see in here that is horrible and hideous and bad. Fire away. Come on, Patty, I see you. Well, let's see. Not desirable in a picture. Even though they're at awe, either that or yawning, I don't know. And oftentimes the parents is what make pictures really, really bad, because they're kind of zoned out, and, you know, who can blame them? Their kids are entertained and maybe they have just a quiet moment to themselves. But these group pictures, and I see what I was trying to do here. It just didn't work. You know, you're trying to get that live animal and the kids being enthralled with it. But, you know, those group pictures, yes, the kid looks bored. Absolutely. This one here, oh my. This is another one. You know, we get a performer up there or a presenter up there, and they're saying something interesting, and we want to share that with our group later on. Here's a secret. Unless you have got John Grisham in the house, no talking heads. Michelle Obama might also work, but, you know, it needs to be that type of, you know, famous person that everybody recognizes, because they'll stop at that. They stop their scrolling at Michelle Obama at the library. However, if you just have your random local presenter, however interesting they may be, just don't do the talking heads. What I have started to do instead, let's see if this works for me. Probably not, but we'll try it anyhow. Oops. Hang on. So I don't think you get the sound. But what I have started, instead of doing just the picture of a presenter up in front of an audience, is to have the presenter in 30 seconds or less tell us what they're talking about. So this gentleman was talking about the importance of libraries. So instead of taking a picture of him on the stage, I walked him over to the library, stood him in front of some bookshelves. Yes, unfortunately, they're the large print selection, which has nothing to do with his talk. But to just have him talk for just a few seconds, just a snippet, just long enough to where people may be interested in what they have to say. Super important on social media is posting in a timely manner. Ideal is within 24 hours. Well, ideal is within 3 hours, but that's not always going to happen, because let's not forget that we need to do the editing and the choosing and the caption writing. So it's oftentimes not instant, but you should get it as close to the event as possible. I think within 24 hours is fair. After that, you're losing your audience. I know from myself, if I go to a library and I participate in a thing and I see someone taking pictures who looks like a library photographer or event photographer, I'm going to go home and look and see if I see those pictures. When I don't, I may come back the next day and look. After that, I'm over it. I'm on to other adventures, other experiences, other moments. So I think it is vitally important to do that. I don't think you should ever post poor photos. So I would say posting from the event is not necessary, but posting as close afterwards as possible would be the ideal thing. So let's say you have an hour event, don't post while you're still taking pictures just because you have that one in your camera. Wait until after the event, you know, maybe while somebody else is cleaning up, or after you cleaned up, you sit down with your photos, you ditch the really poor ones, and then you start posting. And we'll get a little bit more into that here in a minute. So this was not all the same event, but they were all similar events. So which one, if you had these 3 photos, which ones would you post? Anybody? Come on. A, yes. Anybody have a different opinion? Hedgehog B, I do like Mr. Prickly Pants. He is a very good, very photogenic little hedgehog. Yes, his face is a little bit behind the glove. What I like about Mr. Prickly Pants here is if you posted that with the right caption, it makes me feel like I can get real up and close and experience this animal. Now, picture number C, is there anything you can do with this picture? Well, it's certainly, I see you shaking your head, Patty. It certainly should not be posted on social media. One of or the only reason I can see using this photo is to tell my library director that spending the $300 for this performer was a good deal because look at all of those happy children. And then after that, I can delete it. Happily delete it because I will not ever use it again after that. I like number A because it shows me that the children get close to this live animal and it kind of looks like an educational and fun thing. So with the right caption, that would draw me in. Again, you kind of understand the target audience, and I think that is very important in our marketing. Yes, lots of smiles in A. I do agree. And yes, number C shows that there's a bunch of people, and you see that in A too, but A, of course, is the cleaner photo. You see what's going on, why are they there, and they're having fun, and they're doing something. So I think over the years, this has become a little bit better. But I think we do need to work on good captions on our photos, especially things like Instagram. If you don't say anything, sometimes I scroll through social media and there's a library photo that intrigues me, but I can't quite see what they're doing and, you know, what's going on there. And then I'm really looking for that caption. Kind of the same thing here without the caption. You know, the photo, I don't even know it's at a library, but if I do put a caption there, then they know, hey, we're having some fun at this and this branch, you should probably come for this event. All right, your turn. Let's see how we can caption that. What do you think is going on in this picture?
Your stuff's done. Here, I ate a couple. I just put them in a bowl.
Okay, could be taxes. Anything else? Tax. I do believe, Michael, you're right. I think it was homework help or tutoring at the library. Again, it's a little bit older picture. It's a little bit dated, but I do think that, you know, if you put something about free tax help at your library, yes, or free tutoring services, or meet at the library for study groups, or any of those, that sort of thing just adds value to our post and to our photo. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. What questions do you have for me?
Dorothy, I'll ask you to leave this slide up for just a little bit.
Absolutely.
And then we'll take it down, and that way then everybody can see your face while we
Oh,
finish
yay.
this up.
Oh, yay, face. I was avoiding my face the whole entire time. So what questions do you have for me?
There we go. And I put your contact information in the
I
chat.
see that.
now.
Yes,
and I'm
feel
gonna
free to
wait.
email.
How long have you been taking photographs?
Well, pretty much the entire time I worked in the library. So let's call that 25 years. And I have, of course, always taken my personal photographs. I find because of the digital photography, we have so many more tools. I don't know how many of you are old like me and had the analog film to begin with. And, so if you took one picture, that was the one picture you got. Because you couldn't afford to take 5 pictures of the same thing because you would have to get them developed and have to pay for the developing. And of course, you wouldn't even know if it turned out or not for another week or 2 if you finished that roll of film. So, but I would say I have done it for libraries pretty much my entire time in libraries. And as you saw from some of my bad examples, I was not always good at it.
Dorothy?
Yes.
One of the things I wanted to make sure all the listeners knew is if you print out the handout and then you cut out the screen on the
Yes.
cell phone that's in the middle of the handout, Dorothy has a tip for using that.
Yes. So you can use that to practice framing your shot. So if you hold that up in front of you, we did that at the conference, and just look through that gap in the paper, and then you can kind of see how changing your angle or your distance to the subject changes your photo. You can do the same thing by just using your cell phone. So if you took your cell phone out of your pocket and just held it up in your office and aim it at something, you can see the lines, those hard lines that I was talking about, the shelves and things. You will see how just changing your angle a little bit frames a shot in a better way.
There's a couple more questions in chat.
Okay.
The quality of cell phone cameras now rivals many DSLR cameras, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have the DSLR camera, but I hardly ever use it anymore just because my cell phone is so much more convenient and has the same quality, and the automatic settings will be your friend, especially when you're not a seasoned photographer. So yes, I will say if you have a good cell phone, then you are set.
And there's another question. How do you feel about the rule of thirds?
I do like that as a guide. So the rule of thirds, and without me having a screen where I can show it, is a little bit difficult, but oftentimes what you can do is to not center your subject in the center of your frame, but to have it off to a line, an imaginary line that cuts your image in thirds. You can Google that and probably get a little bit better explanation from it, but it does make your photos more interesting. So if you take a picture of a flower or a sunset, for example, don't put the sun right in the center of your photo. Have it off to the side just a little bit.
And do you edit directly on your phone, or do you download it first, then edit?
If I take the pictures on my phone, I do most of my editing on the phone. And I see the question about the editing products. I actually don't use much. So if I have my phone, I have an iPhone, I just use the editing software that is pre-installed. And the same holds true, I think, on our work computer. We have an old version of Picasa. I do very minimal editing. Most of it is either straightening the picture or cropping it. Sometimes I'll fix the color or the lighting by just a little bit, but if you do too much of it, it no longer looks genuine. It doesn't look authentic. So I would say do a minimum of editing. Thank you, Michael, for putting that link in the chat.
Thank you for sharing with us today, Dorothy.
Absolutely.
It seems that whenever I've tried to schedule Dorothy this year, we've had severe weather. The first time was when we all ended up with multiple snow days, and then there's today, and a lot of libraries are closed. But we had up to 21 people at one time I saw. Of course,
Very
some
nice.
go back to work, and the archive will be up in just a few days. And I have linked to the handout as well several times in here. And just thank you so much for being here. This will really
Absolutely.
help our librarians, I think.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and you have my email address if you have any questions or any thoughts or anything, any follow-up stuff.
Do you have a social media presence where you post your own photos, or should we
I
follow you at the
do.
library?
We don't have an official library one because I'm in the administration. Let me see what my Instagram is. It is Dorothy2, DOROTHEE, the number 2. And that one is open. I mean, it's my personal account, but I do a lot of beach pictures. So if you want to see how beautiful our beaches are, just, follow me on Instagram.
We want to see those beaches, especially in January.
Yes, yes, and they are beautiful.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
My
And,
pleasure.
thanks a lot. This is great.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Bye-bye.
me. Bye.